Thank you so much to the Burnaby Writers Society. These events mean so much in creating community and giving the opportunity for voices to be heard. So I'm very, very grateful to be part of this and delighted to be with Kevin, who is a longtime buddy and inspiration, I have to say. I'm going to be reading from this new book, Talking to Strangers. The first poem I'd like to read was inspired, as I was saying early, by an episode of the CBC radio program, Quirks and Quarks. So much of what we hear about the environment is devastating, but I do find it for myself important to pay attention to those instances where human efforts to ameliorate human damage are successful. So this episode spoke of efforts on coral restorations in Indonesia to repair the damage done by dynamite fishing. And in fact, the program has been quite successful. It's been funded by the Mars Foundation, which is the candy bar company. So sort of unlikely allies, certainly. I'll begin, as I was saying, if the technology gods permit, by playing the very opening seconds of that episode of Quirks and Quarks. And it has a recording of a noisy and healthy coral reef. So healthy coral reefs, if you put a hydrophone down into them, they're quite loud. And this noise is what I describe in the first stanza of my poem. So my poem is called Coral Reef, with a CH as a little joke. I've just realized recently that I tell dad jokes all the time, and I'm afraid this is probably one of them. But coral reef, and the first stanza does try to reproduce that sound, which I listened to over and over again as I was composing the poem. A pine siskin gorging at the suet feeder. Pigs snuffling truffles. Your teacher rapping on the desk for the class's attention. Dad subsiding into the sofa at the close of a long day. Tubas farting. The soundtrack confounds the discordant music of a living reef. You thought fish were mum, but all this is the tap of a bully boy clownfish, lord of its proprietary anemone, clanging its teeth to let an underling know who's boss. The high hoot of an ambon damselfish, legendary for its gumption as it claims its turf. This commotion, the bustle of commerce among creatures caught by the researchers' equipment. Reef restoration, reparation for the damage done by dynamite fishing, humans doing what they do, then trying to undo it. Setting hexagonal reef stars, these modular metal frames, onto the rubble fields, making hives coral bits can cling to. And they do. The fish and their chatter witness to a reef revised, thanks to money from Mars, candy company, not planet. Though some sounds baffle even the researcher, these loud clowns, dominatrix damsels, only part of the voluble circus. The rest we are free to imagine. Kudos to the Martians. Even if we don't buy it, we do have this scaffolding, this sweet framework, bits of hope cling to, imagining better. So that's from the first section of the book, which is sort of derived from a variety of external sources, news articles, and these, I'm a CBC radio fan. So the second poem I wanted to read to you today was also inspired by a Quirks and Quarks episode. And this one interviewed the astronomer Katie Mark about her book, which is titled The End of Everything, Astrophysically Speaking. And I should mention that this poem was written during the pandemic, and that comes in towards the end. And my poem is also titled The End of Everything. Cosmology knows everything began, remember the Big Bang? And will end. Stars form, die, galaxies morph. The universe won't stay. The astrophysicist figures we have 5 paths. Heat death, big crunch, big rip, vacuum decay, or finally my personal favorite, bouncing cosmologies. Contrary to popular opinion, heat death is in fact the death of heat, not death by heat. This big chill, the most likely suspect. For the big crunch, picture a classic house of cards, twin towers pancaking. Everything we can imagine and all we can't folding inwards into itself. The big rip is plain rage, dark energy, which we don't understand, at war with the stuff we do. Stars torn from galaxies, poor stars, planets, poor planets, torn from their stars till everyone is alone in their own dimming little pool of light. Vacuum decay has the universe shudder, succumb to some basic instability, giving in to a core flaw. I do like the unlikely bouncing cosmology, where everything pinballs, beginning and ending, cycling over and over and over again. Some comfort there. When the astrophysicist is asked what this has to do with us, she says we are irrelevant, inconsequential, perfectly insignificant. So what do we have to do with this if we don't matter? What is the end of everything, in particular, us? Maybe this. Maybe for us, this. Everything, maybe one countenance, one single look, or in these days of pestilence, touch. Someone we know like the back of our hand, that's someone touching our hand. These are days of pestilence, days of excess deaths. Every day, each death, a death too many. Each death, the end of a world. I'll just take a little breath there. That one's a little bit hard to read. The next section of the book is the talking to strangers section, and these are 10 poems that came from actual real encounters with strangers, with people that I just happened to meet. And to indicate that in the book, I've given each of the poems both a location and a time. And the first one, and the first one in the series, and the one that I'm going to read now, is called Talk, White Night. And it was, it occurred in the Whitehorse, Yukon. There was a Whitehorse Poetry Festival at once upon a time that was really wonderful. And the date is June 2011. And so if you're up in Whitehorse in June, there's something like 3 hours of semi-darkness. It's quite amazing. So that's set in Whitehorse at that time of year. But I should also mention that it's just after those hockey riots, and that event, the Vancouver hockey riots, and that event comes into the poem. Talk, White Night, Whitehorse, Yukon, June 2011. We're all strangers in the startling light of midnight, but we seat ourselves beside the young woman in the dim booth in the bar, talk about the light, the dark inside, the kilometers she's driven solo from Vancouver with her dogs, sleeping in her van. She's fine, she says. She's safe with the dogs. She just needed something. A flinch in her mouth I catch. To get away. Talk drifts to the hockey riots 10 days ago when the Canucks lost the big game. Fans segued into mob and began their labors tipping porta potties, garbage cans, moved on to torching police cars, trashing pizza joints. Then anything. Now, inside the bar's dull light, we watch 10-day-old footage on someone's phone. Smoke rolling thick as silk on sidewalks the angry men own for a bit. I need a weapon, a sweet-faced boy says, watching another crack his skateboard against a car. And it's work to break through the tough glass. When at last they win, watchers cheer, take trophy snapshots, videos, victory V's, triumphant poses. There have been walls between them and what they want. Their team has failed, so now they'll take walls down, fill their arms with things they don't have or don't have enough of. I was there, the young woman tells us. She's a paramedic. That night she was out with the cops. The people she'd come to help hurt her. She pushes back her bangs to show the bruise. She's safe with the dogs. She just needed to get away. Beyond the windows, the sun broods over the horizon, not ready to go. And the second is also from this series. My adult son was living in Toronto at the time, and it's called Talk, Sidewalk, Toronto, October 2019. The man bleeding won't sit down. He'll hold the towel the bystander got him from the nail salon tight around his wrist, and he'll raise his arm above his head like we ask him, but he won't sit down. He's sad about the six-pack that fell and cut him, sad they're broken. And it hurts where the glass sliced, but he won't sit on the curb. My son has called 911 and we want the ambulance to come. We want the siren wailing towards us because the blood scares us, brightening the white towel with red, the new one, second one that the bystander, a young woman with a backpack thinking quick, has also fetched. Blood shines on the sidewalk on the street. The man bleeding is tall, tall as my son, and we're afraid of how far he could fall. His speech isn't quite right, and he's angry when my son tells the dispatcher he might be intoxicated. I have a brain injury, he tells us. I was in a car accident 12 years ago. I was in a wheelchair for 2 years. I apologize, my son says. I made a mistake. It's okay, the man says. You made a mistake. But he won't sit down. I've sat enough, he says. And I'll just read one more poem. I live in Vancouver and I have this large, highly unruly, sort of incorrigible garden that I spend a lot of time looking after. And the poem is about the garden and about more than that. I should also mention the poem has a little reference. The speaker says, I grew up in a cold place. I grew up in Winnipeg, so that's the cold place. The poem is called Definition. I describe my woes to my friend, the pro, genius of a plot greater and finer than my own big old garden, where everything grows into everything else. Definition, she tells me. That's what I need. I was defined by a cold place, a time when summer was brief and brilliant, by a house of enough in a neighborhood of just and not enough, pink petunias and orange marigold, a red rose or two, but here, too much. Too much moneywort, invaded by stonecrop, inveigled by barrenwort, entangled with leopard's bane. Besotted, greedy, jealous to save every bloom, leaf. For me, this more than enough isn't too much. Can't yank a stem I call flower, not weed. Though there is the buttercup war I keep waging, kneeling on stones like a penitent, cursing their stubborn, fecund being. What's the difference between flowers and weeds? Peter, at 8, enlisted as foot soldier, asks. Pull everything up and what comes back is weed, my dad in his heyday would kid, neatly defining invasive. Define need. Define enough. My friend tells me I need to learn to say no to ferns sprouting in the daylilies, to sweet woodruff invading hosta. Need to define what it is I want, what I keep, love, let flourish. I want too much. Thank you.